we'll share the screen. And Benedicte.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I'm just admitting a few more people. Okay. Yes, so we'll start off with a brief introduction to this key action, as Bård said. And first of all, capacity building in higher education is an action within Erasmus+, which is a so-called centralized action. That means that it is administered by the European Education and Culture Executive Agency, which is located in Brussels. And this agency receives the applications, manages the assessment procedures, the allocation, and the project management. Our role here in høyere is limited to promotion of the action. We support applicants in the application process by providing information and advice. And we also have some contact with project coordinators and partners in Norway during project implementation. And at an overall level, capacity building in higher education is expected to contribute to the overarching priorities of the European Commission. And in addition, also the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. And modernization of higher education institutions and higher education systems in partner countries is a central objective. And it's very important that the activities and outcomes benefit higher education institutions and the systems in what we call third countries not associated to the program, which I will explain in 2 seconds. Horizontal aspects are important. I will not go much into details. You can read more about this in the online program guide at the website of the European Commission and also at the website of høyere. But if you have a project idea that, for example, aims to improve the quality of education and enhance the link with the business sector, or you want to promote inclusive education, improve training of teachers and professional development, support digital transformation, and you are concerned about environmental sustainability, and the impact will be at partners in third countries not associated to the program, you are on the right track. And even though the program guide 2023 has not yet been published, we really recommend that you already read the program guide 2022 carefully. We do not know yet if there will be many changes, but for sure the main substance of the action remains. Capacity building in higher education is included in what we call the international dimension of Erasmus+. And this dimension, as we call it, is fully integrated to the Erasmus+ program. But the funding source is the EU's external financial instruments, which comes with its own priorities. And as you can see here from the map, we differentiate between EU member states and third countries that are associated to the program, which we call program countries for short. Norway is a program country, and third countries that are not associated to the program, partner countries. And in capacity building in higher education institutions in partner countries can also coordinate projects. And all regions except the industrialized countries are included in this action. Okay, you can change slide. Well, thanks. So as I said, the funding for capacity building in higher education comes from the EU's external financial instruments and reflects the overall EU policy priorities. And the budget is split into budget envelopes per region. And in terms of regional allocation and capacity building, Sub-Saharan Africa is by far the region with the highest budget, followed by Asia, Western Balkans, Latin America, and the neighborhood East. And what you see here are the budget figures of the 2022 call. So there may be some changes in the 2023 figures, although we expect that the overall priorities will be the same. And you can also see here that there is an indicative budget for 3 different strands, and I will explain these strands in a minute. But what is important to know is that there is dedicated budget for each of these strands, and there is no flexibility between these budgets. But I can explain that better in a couple of seconds. Yeah, so there are 3 different project categories or strands in capacity building in higher education. And each strand has its own objectives and ambitions, which is also reflected in the project budget size. We don't have time to go into the very details of each strand, and I really recommend you to read more about the objectives and examples of activities in the program guide. But in short, strand 1 is a relatively new strand, which was launched in the first call for capacity building in the new program period, the call 2022. And this strand is meant for newcomers to the action or less experienced. The main or the aim, the main emphasis of this strand is that it should be located in least developed third countries or located in remote areas. And if you would like to reform or modernize university governance, establish or strengthen international relation offices, elaborate internationalization strategies, or establish new or develop existing quality assurance units, this strand may be relevant for you. The projects are 2 or 3 years long, and the budget size is between 200,000 euros and 400,000 euros. Strand 2 is for bigger projects, a bit more ambitious projects maybe. They are also focused on higher education institutions, but designed to have a larger and wider impact on innovation, university business relations, and institutional governance. If you have more experience and maybe a larger network to build on, for example, from previous cooperation projects, nationally funded projects, and you would like to introduce new approaches and initiatives in higher education, affecting not only the institutions, but also the society at large. And there is a strong element of innovation and promotion of reform in higher education institutions, then this strand could be relevant for you. These projects are longer, it's 3 or 4 years, and the budget size is bigger, between 400,000 and 800,000 euros. And strand 3 are projects that focus on macro level of policy reforms required to foster internationalization. And besides including higher education institutions, these projects also require involvement of educational authorities and or ministries. And examples of objectives for strand 3 are to promote cooperation and mutual learning among and between public authorities at the highest institutional level, to promote inclusive higher education systems with a particular focus on people with fewer opportunities, to increase capacities of higher education institutions and systems in third countries, including bodies in charge of higher education and competent authorities, or to identify synergies with ongoing EU initiatives. And these projects are also 3 or 4 years long, and the budget size is between 800,000 and 1 million euros. So they are quite big. We have 3 different types also of capacity building projects. We have national projects, multi-country regional projects, and multi-country cross-regional projects. In all projects, at least 2 higher education institutions from 2 countries associated to Erasmus Plus needs to be included. You should be aware here that there may be some restrictions in terms of which countries from which regions can participate in these, especially in the national projects. In Call 2022, Western Balkans and Latin America could not participate in national projects. And also you should be aware that if you do a multi-country cross-regional project with which includes regions that are geographically located far away from each other, you may need to justify this very clearly in the proposal. But we will see when the call is published if there are any novelties in this regard in the call 2023. Okay, Bård.
Yes, one challenge also with multi-country cross-regional projects may be that you need to have available funding within all these rather strict budgets. So there is a risk that you will not get funding because there is not more funding for one of the regions, though you would qualify for the others.
Yes.
So let's say a few words about money. Lump sum budgets. Those of you who have been following Erasmus Plus for quite some years will remember that in earlier days, budgets and accounts were more based on actual costs. Then we have had for a period a budgeting system based on fixed rates for travels, fixed rates for working hours or days. This is now being replaced by what is called lump sum budget. And the basic of those budgets is that you get an amount of money based on estimated costs in your budget, and the financial reporting will be very much simplified. So you are mainly reporting on accomplishment of work packages. So the budget is organized according to these work packages, which could be like dissemination or management or specific organization of the activities that you're going to implement through your project. And funds are also specified, distributed between the partners within each work package. So still, you will have to estimate various costs like personnel, subcontracting, travel, subsistence, equipment, etc. But when you got money, you're not going to report exactly how much money you spent on this. You are going to report on the activities, that activities are accomplished. And the payments are also a bit different than before. When the grant agreement is signed, you will get a percentage of the total budget transferred to the coordinator. We asked the EA what would be the percentage. They haven't given a very clear-cut answer, but probably at least 50% will be transferred at the beginning of the project. Then there will be a second payment after midterm reporting, or after probably like 2/3 of the project. Then you will only get paid for the work packages that have been accomplished until then. This means that when you are organizing your project, you should be sure to not make all work packages cross-cutting from day one till the last day of the project. Because if you do that, they will say this work package has not been completed, and therefore you will not get any money paid out in the second payment. So try to, of course, some work packages like coordination administration will be very hard to organize and finish on the halfway, but some should be finished before the reporting, so that you get some extra funding paid out to your project. Then the remaining funds will be transferred after the final reporting of your project. And in principle, if the evaluator is considering that the work package has not been completed, it is possible to reduce the funding. And we don't yet have that much experience of what will be counted as a major deviation from the work package and the deliverables that were planned. There are some information in a document which you see below, and which link we're going to put this on the webinar webpage, and you can follow that link. There's a rather useful guideline to lump sum budget, which was published just 3 weeks ago. And I think that one gives a lot of good advice on how to understand the lump sum, how to report on lump sum budgets and progress. You should also be aware that the CBHE action will only cover up to 90% of your project budget. And this was not so clear in the previous call, I think, when at least it was somewhat open for interpretation. But this means that if you, for example, want to get 400,000 euros through this action, you will have to present a budget of a minimum of 444,000 euros. And then the 44,000 euros will be your own contribution to the project. So you should not, if the upper limit of your project is 400,000, you should not present a budget of 400,000, but 400,000 and additional 10%. Yes. Then some words about the requirements of the partnerships. There was a change last year that was not really picked up by everyone. I will return to that one. But the basic is that you need at least 2 higher education institutions, universities, colleges, whatever, from at least 2 EU member states or third countries associated to the program. Norway is such a third country. So Norway, this is, in the old days, we were talking about program countries and partner countries. And what you will find is that these notions are a bit used in parallel right now. But in all written formal documentation, you will see EU countries, third countries, while when people speak, they will often say program countries. In the same way, when people speak, they will say partner countries, but in all written communication, it is non-associated third countries. You need at least 1 higher education institution from EU associated countries, 2 EU associated countries, and at least 2 higher education institutions from 1 non-associated country. So it means that the minimum consortium is 4 higher education institutions. Then you cannot have more higher education institutions within EU and Norway than you have with the non-associated countries. So you cannot have a network of 10 European universities and then add 2 universities from Zambia and have an acceptable network. But what was introduced last year and was actually a major reason for rejection of some applications was that you are not allowed to have, you may have many other kinds of partners within your partnership, but you're not allowed to have, for example, an NGO from a European country if you do not have a higher education institution from the same country. So you cannot, for example, have an international organization with a headquarters in Brussels and without having a Belgian university on board. You cannot have a Swiss organization, and it doesn't matter whether this is an international organization which has a headquarters in some country or whether it's a national organization. So in the moment you introduce another partner, non-higher education institution partner, you need to have your university in the same country. the coordinating institutions of such a project may be situated either in any country, basically, which is eligible for funding. So it may be EU country, non-associated third country in the south, or it can be a country like Norway. I mentioned that the minimum consortium consists of 4 institutions. But when I've looked at the projects that got funding in 2022, we do see that the majority of networks of consortia are quite a bit larger. Some are so large that you somehow ask yourself whether it's possible to organize this in an efficient way. But there are very few projects with less than 5, 6, 7 partners. And there are quite a number of projects with more than 10 partners. So I would guess that it's wise not to be on absolute minimum when you apply. Why should you consider to apply for this section? I think the basic is that you need to really be interested in cooperating with the countries covered by this action. It will not be 100% funding. So you need to put in quite some effort here. That means on an individual level of the people involved, and also an institutional level, there is some contribution. So you need to have a strong motivation. But these funds are also rather big compared to other funding sources within educational programs. And we see that one region that has been highly attractive for Norwegian institutions earlier, Sub-Saharan Africa, gets a bigger share in the last calls. It's also possible to include equipment for the non-associated third countries. It's very important that you do this in the correct way in the application, that all equipment is indicated as to be owned by the non-associated countries institution and not bought for Norwegian institutions. If you indicate that you will buy equipment for Norwegian institutions, that budget item will simply be removed, and you will not be able to re-budget. There is a possibility for quite a number of wide range of activities, including student mobility on master or PhD level. So you can do quite a lot of things. And although there are overarching priorities, thematic priorities, I think that it will be possible to justify project within a large scale, wide range of subjects. The budget is also somewhat simplified now with the lump sums. It should be easier to manage, and the application procedure is also somewhat simplified, but still this is rather complicated. So you need to put in quite some effort into preparation of your project, and it will take some effort to coordinate it. But we do think that Norwegian higher education institutions do have a long experience from nationally funded capacity building programs like in Norhed and Opptak, and you should be competitive. One carrot at the institutional level may be that these centralized actions are qualifying for Norwegian additional funding, like the Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe now, within what's called the EU indicator. I'm not going into detail on that, but it means that your institution will get money refunded in 2 years' time if you get such a project from the Norwegian budget. And the success rate is not that low. In 2022, there was a success rate of 23%, so 145 projects were supported. It's not extremely high, but also not hopeless to get funding for your project. So how do you apply? the call will be put on the FTOP. So if you Google FTOP, you'll find the project funding opportunities and tender website of the European Union, and you click on Erasmus Plus, and then you get all the current open calls. We were told at the Commission's webinar that everything will be in place in November. And what it indicated, and hopefully that will be correct, is will not only be the call that is published, but also the application forms and additional attachments and budget forms, guidelines, everything hopefully will be published in November. So it will be available on this website. And you will find that there are 3 elements of the application. There is what is called administrative forms, which is entered mainly formal information about all partners. Then there is the main part B, which is called a technical description, and where you detail and argue for why your project is relevant, has the necessary quality of the partnership and the work plan. We will have impact on society, and you will specify your work packages. And then there is 1 or more attachments, including what is called a detailed budget table. And although these documents are not yet published, some templates that were used last year, and we suppose the same templates will be used maybe in a slightly modified format, are already available at the website, and we've included some links here in the presentation. So one element here to notice is that although budgets are simplified, you will actually have to fill 3 budgets, because you fill 1 detailed budget table as an attachment. You will fill budgets on each working package specified for each partner who's going to benefit from that working package. And there's also a summarized budget in part A. So it's very important to ensure consistency within the various parts of your application. And that is a general advice here, that try to get started early and try to get someone outside of the project group to read through your project proposal, so that they can look at it with fresh eyes and not having all the background information that you possess. So this should be readable for an evaluator who is not a specialist within your field, but the evaluator should understand what you're going to do, why you want to do it, how you're going to do it, how much it's going to cost, and what will be the positive impact of your project. So Benedicte, then you take over.
Yes, so there is a lot of information out there. And we have collected here a list of useful links. First of all, we cannot stress enough how important it is to read the Erasmus Plus program guide carefully. The 2023 version will be out when the call is published. But still, it could be useful to have a look at the version from last year. It's also online in a very user-friendly format, I would say. Have a good look at the eligibility criteria and also the award criteria. There is also an Erasmus Plus project results platform where you can look up project examples. It could be very useful for inspiration and also to see what's going on already in partner countries that you would like to cooperate with. There is also online information webinars. This week, the European Commission organized worldwide webinars, and the recordings will be available at their website, which we have linked to here. And also the executive agency informed that they will do a series of information events, so webinars in English, starting, I think it was around 25th of November. The dates and the events have not been published yet, but here we have included a link where you may follow and see when they publish more information. So I think it's very useful and important to watch those events. Of course, we are available at HKDIR. If you have any questions or concerns, you may contact us. But we also advise you to make use of internal resources at your institution. Maybe there are already some ongoing projects that you can learn from. And then also the funding and tender opportunities portal that Bård just mentioned. You will also find useful information and I think mock application forms, etc. So have a good look at these web pages and try to follow the webinars. Yeah, then we also have some other funding opportunities that Bård will explain you quickly.
Yes, you can get some money from us. Project Development Support, Prosjektetableringsstøtte. You may apply for up to 100,000 Norwegian kroner if you are going to be the coordinator of a capacity building project. Or if you're going to be a partner, you can apply for up to 50,000 Norwegian kroner. And the money may be spent on salaries, on consultation, on travels. It's quite a wide range of activities that may be covered. Applications are processed on a rolling basis, so you don't have to wait for a deadline, but they must be submitted, of course, before the deadline of the action that you apply for. And but you need to have an eligible consortium in place before you apply. That means for CBHE that you need to have identified the 4 core institutions before you apply to us. But it's fine if you want to, if you write it, we want to add 2 more institutions, we want to include some local NGOs, schools, whatever, that is very fine. But if you don't meet the basic formal requirements of the action, then you will not get this funding. And costs may only be covered from the date of application. So if you apply tomorrow, you will be able to cover costs that run from tomorrow, even though you get a reply for us in a week's time or so, but you will not be able to get a refund for some money you spent in September. So it means you should, and really we are assessing how likely it is that you, with the help of this funding, will be able to come up with a competitive application. So it means that you need to know enough to be able to convince us that this idea is good enough and your strategy is good enough to be competitive, while at the same time not wait until it's too short time left. And of course, the closer you get to application deadline, the more should be in place for us to really trust your ability to come up with a competitive proposal.
Okay, I'm going to stop